Hi, I'm Ron Zurawski from Prolifics. In this video, we demonstrate Prolifics' Manta-to-Purview Integrator. Manta has many out-of-the-box connectors, expanding Purview's potential sources. We'll start with an architecture overview, initiate the Prolifics integrator and walk through it, review Manta required settings and lineage while it's loading Purview, and then compare Purview to Manta lineage. Manta extracts metadata from sources on the left. We use an on-prem SQL Server database and on-prem SSIS packages as requested by Microsoft for this initial demo. We will expand to use other sources in a later demo. Manta analyzes metadata, builds lineage relationships, and exports that information to flat files. The Prolifics integrator reorganizes Manta's metadata and presents it to Purview to load. Prolifics integrator has a control script orchestrating the work. The environmental scripts contain location and access information for Manta and Purview. Python translates Manta output to Purview input. Logs record progress and errors. In this picture of the Purview system, we see that there are no assets that have been loaded. We'll come back to that in a minute. On a Windows server using Bash command line interface, let's run the integrator. I've pre-staged it. We initiate. The first thing it asks is, which environmental file do you want me to use, so that it knows the correct Manta and Purview to access. It then goes out to Manta, confirms there's a valid license. If there was no valid license, it'd stop. It found a valid license. It now pulled the workflows from Manta and asks, which one do you want me to run? For the purposes of this demo, we're going to skip that. It now lists the 5 most recent exports out of Manta, asks, which one do you want me to run? We'll use the most recent one. It shows the files that it found. Begin the processing. It asks, are there any additional files you would like to load? We're going to say no for the purposes of this demo, leave it blank. It now asks, how do you want to load the data into Purview? And we're going to use an upsert. It then tells us, here is the unique log file address. And it begins the run. While it's running, let's take a quick look at Manta. The connections that we used for this demo are a database SQL Server demo, SSIS, and then enabling the Open Manta integration export. We have multiple, one moment please. We have multiple workflows. This is an export that would simply take the last import and analytics from Manta and load it. We have an import analyze, and then we have a full import information, analyze it, and then export it to the flat files, which was the last run by the integrator. Going over to the flow viewer, we have loaded SSIS packages, database structures, and flat files that we will be using. I'm going to take the customer table and display the lineage for it. We start with the customer table. We see a SSIS package pulling the information out of the customer table. We see an SSIS package preparing the information for load into the customer table. These are both sample 1. We'll look at that later. From the flat file, we see that there is a separate SSIS process pulling the information, and we will look at that again when we get into Purview. At this time, we are still waiting for the load into Purview to complete. So we're going to pause and then proceed once that's done. As you can now see, the integrator has finished loading Purview. And we're back at the command prompt. We're now going to go in and look at Purview. I'm going to start by refreshing the Purview screen, and we will see that objects have been loaded. In fact, we have 265. We're going to go into the repository, and let's take a look at that same customer table we looked at before. All right, let's take a look at lineage. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange these so that they make a little more sense and line up with what we have for Manta. All right, so we have the customer table we started with. We have the SSIS package. We have the OLE pull from the customer table. We have the flat file preparation and load into flat file. And then if we look here, we see that we have sample 2 there in the qualified name as the next step. Going back and comparing that with what we saw in Manta, we have the customer table, the OLE pull, the prep and push into the flat file, and then sample 2 pulling and moving the data further downstream. This concludes my demo. I thank you very much for your time.